to shuffle it. So. This is how it's done professional.
Hello everyone, this interview we're a little bit disabled today, so while we're disabled we thought we'd do a few more interviews of Nana. Nana, so we're up to the next chapter of your life, and I think we got to moving to the farm.
And probably when we moved to the farm, this shirt that I've got on, I probably had the same shirt when we moved to the farm.
You might have
It's
too,
that
Well, you don't waste anything, do you, Mum? Mum, when you moved to the farm, that was a pretty big transition for you, and you took on farming. You took it on very well, and considering that you hadn't grown up on a farm, and you really took on it like a duck to water. And we moved to Granny's place, and can you maybe give us a bit of an idea about our year at Granny's place, or moving into Granny's place?
Moving from Mackay, first of all we had a lovely trip down, in that the government paid for all our expenses, so as a family we'd never been able to go to any reasonably flash hotels or that, so for the week we lived it up, which was really great, so it's a great holiday. We then come down, and because we didn't have accommodation, we stayed at Granny's, which was a very, very big house, room for all of us, but it was a bit hard in some ways, because we were used to our own selves at home, and then we had to get into Granny's ways. She wasn't the tidiest of people, and gradually I started to get that way myself. I can still remember not folding the washing, or she had what they call the old junk room, and so anything that we couldn't put away we'd throw into the junk room. But look, on the whole, it was lovely. She had the old wood stove. She did have a toilet inside that they had put on. The old toilet was still out down the back.
Was that still functional?
No, it wasn't functioning.
I remember it being there, but
it wasn't functioning in those days. It certainly wasn't Dad's day and that. It was handy. All the kids used to go to either the Jimboomba State School or the Bedesset High School, and they all caught the bus up the corner with some of their cousins, and all went on the same bus in those days, which was a double-decker bus that you don't see much of today.
Actually, in the early days, Mum, didn't we walk right up Stockley Road to the Mount Lindsay Highway when we first arrived? I seem to remember thinking we
I don't know whether you walked. I think you might have got dropped off. I don't know where they did go and get on the bus at the Mount Lindsay Highway today is just so different. It's all been changed, and so you couldn't sit on the corner where they used to sit.
Was that for just our first year? I don't remember doing it for very long. Was that maybe when the first year we arrived?
Well, the first year, in time the bus came around, but I think for quite a while you still went up to the Mount Lindsay Highway. When you went to John Paul College, it was different, but I don't think the bus came around.
But the Bedesset State School bus came to us at the end of Flynn Road for quite a while, because I remember we walked up with Pepper, our dog at that point. So we lived with Granny for that year, and I think that was the year, I think you might have already said in one of our previous interviews that you actually milked a lot during that year, because Granny, the upside was Granny could help look after the five of us during that time, so it allowed you to milk a lot more.
And at that time there was Granny, I'd milked a bit. Granny had paid helpers at the time, Lyle, and then later on, I can't think of the other fellow's name, but then gradually when they went, then we did a lot with just Greg and Charlie. Dad used to do the books with Granny, and I used to do a lot of the milking, which I enjoyed very much. Certainly living with Granny was lovely though. She would play the violin a little bit, and Dad would play the piano, and we'd have little sing-songs. She loved anything we cooked. She would also try and, I think, help you a little bit with schoolwork, did she?
I often remember her helping us with our maths particularly.
Yes. She, like that, Granny was really, really good.
And she was interested in everything, all of us, wasn't she?
Oh, she was. Always wanted everybody to really succeed, and I think that's what I've taken after too, because I like everybody succeeding in what they really want.
Who cooked mostly, Mum, out of you and Granny during that year?
I mainly cooked because, I mean, Granny had got out of cooking for a family. You know, she did have Nana live with her on and off, but Nana had gone before we come to live at the farm. So no, I mainly did the cooking. But she did lots of other things too.
And we then, of course, we moved to our house, which was very exciting. You know, our house being built along the way. And so, tell us about the transition then into our house.
Well, when we bought, Granny had been very generous to all her family, and she'd given the 5 children blocks of land. We could have built up closer to her place, but I suppose, me being me, I thought Granny had binoculars, and she used to use them a bit, and I thought, I don't want those binoculars trailed on our house, so we built over in the paddock, which may have been a bit of a wrong thing because we were lower down, but all the same it worked out very well, and we used to go over to Granny's a lot, have her over to our place a bit.
I think it's quite a good distance. Looking back at it now, I think we were far enough away, but it gave us a bit of fun to, you know, either ride the motorbike or walk up or run up to her place, because it's still close enough that we could get there.
It was.
And, you know, we'd go past the horses and the magpies, and so it was, you know, so we weren't right on her doorstep, I guess, but we were close enough to be able to go there on a regular basis, which we all did, really, actually, didn't we?
So all in all, yes, the time with her and then moving into our own place was very nice. Kathy and Bernadette shared a bedroom, but everybody else had their own bedroom, and we eventually got into some chooks. We had some sheep. Some of them were black. So what was that one called?
Raffles? Was Raffles one? I might know. I've actually forgotten now.
I can't think of the name of that sheep.
Yeah.
We did have cows that we milked, even though we could get milk at the dairy. We had cows. Then Michael repeated his senior, and at that stage he became 17, so he was allowed to drive the old ute to Bedesset on pig day, and sometimes calves, but mainly pigs. He'd deliver them to the sale yards, but then he would park the ute a long way from the school, so nobody knew that he had the smelly old
Now, you'd think
ute.
with a lot of country kids that wouldn't have been, you know, that would have been acceptable, really, because a lot of country kids went to Bedesset. But, so Mum, also, while you moved to the farm, so give us your transition then from Mackay. Really, that was a really big thing, because you'd grown up in Mackay, and you had lots of friends and family and your routines and Vinnie's and the church and the school. And how did you cope with, how old were you when you moved to the farm?
Well, we moved there, I'd have been just on 40 when we moved to the farm, because we moved there at the end of 78. And we moved into our own home at the end of 79. It was lucky, and this is where, I know today it doesn't exist much, but where perhaps a church, and that really, really helped. We used to go to church, and that's probably where our good friends come from. And here, Patrick ended up marrying Catherine Connor, who the Connors were very great friends of ours, and also many other people at the church. So it's probably the church, and Core, another one through the church. And then I did become involved in the school a little bit. Dad couldn't, because he was trying to do lots of other coaching and everything. They didn't have a tuck shop at the school at Bedesset Primary. At Jimboomba Primary.
No, that's
they didn't have a tuck shop.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah,
but I was a catechist. I went and helped the kids once a week with catechist, which was lay people going in to a state school to teach the Catholic kiddies at the school a bit about religion. So it was hard, because I'd grown up with Mackay and worked there.
Were you open to, like when Dad wanted to move back, was he persuading you, or were you happy to
My thing was, the farm was lovely. My one big thing, Dad had been keen to come down, and I wouldn't come unless we had the block of land in our name. I wasn't building on a block of land that didn't belong to us. Granny generously gave us all the farm, as I've said, and so.
When was that she did that?
Well, I think it must have been about might have been 77, I'm not quite sure.
But before you came down.
Before we
obviously.
come down. So when we had the land, Dad then put in to be a subject master in maths was a new school that was opening at Kingston, and he went and was the first subject master at the Kingston State High School, and as I said, he went backwards and forwards there and eventually became the subject master of Browns Plains, which was much closer. But that was the reason we thought the farm would be good. Granny was then on her own, though Auntie Murray lived up the road and Uncle Peter lived across the paddock.
So Granny would have been really excited, wouldn't she? When we
Oh,
were
well, I think
up?
Granny was, because
Another
she'd
child
always...
and grandkids.
Yeah, another grandchild. And not long after we built, Uncle Kerry had died, but Auntie Lexi built at the farm, so that was more of us. The only one that didn't was Uncle Barry. But in hindsight, it's been a great experience, because I look at today and see where families are all drifting apart. The Flynn family and those attached, all now you as adults, with children growing up, children of your own, you all have got on well. You mightn't all agree with each other.
We still have a community.
But you still have a community. As like last night, Lizzie Flynn had put on a very big show. I think it was mainly about the farm, and that was it, a lot of it.
Lizzie, if you're looking at this, it's your Stop the Clocks we're talking about that you put on last night, which had a lot of our history with Granny and the family, and you put a lot of photos up, and you'd written a lot of songs, and there was even a song. Mum couldn't go, unfortunately, last night because the coronavirus is rearing its ugly head a little bit again, but Mum will see the videos. But in the future, but a lot of the photos of our history and Dad around the piano and your relations on Auntie Lynn's side, and as you say, all our family was there, and it was very special because you also wrote a song with Granny in mind, and we are close as an extended family, and it's a wonderful relationship, and I agree with you. I think us growing up in an environment and Granny being the centre of our family, we were very lucky.
Whereas if we had stayed in Mackay, it's a bit now like Bernadette in Darwin. We talk to Det and so forth, but because she's far away, we don't interact a lot.
She's not in our daily lives anymore.
No, and that's what happened when we lived in Mackay. We didn't only would see people on holidays, which wasn't a lot. So by coming down meant that's been a very, and it also was good for me because my mother was still alive, and of course my sister was in Brisbane. So coming down had lots of joy about it.
So Mum, when we came to Jimboomba, we left St Mary's, so we were in a Catholic environment at that point.
Yes.
And then the logical school for us to go to was Jimboomba State Primary School, and I think that Nana was Nana Ginther, one of the first students there, wasn't she?
Yes, she and her sister in Benesit, Cecilia Maureen, Sissy Maureen, they planted a tree there, but I think it's since died. Yes, they were some of the original pupils there, and they used to walk from the farm to the school, which none of you had to do.
It's interesting that Dad, as far as we know, didn't go to Jimboomba Primary, or we're not sure about that, are we?
Well, I thought Dad went to Maclean, but Uncle Peter thinks that he went to Jimboomba, so I won't.
So we'll have to clarify that.
Won't. Yes, I'm not. I was what Dad told me about crossing the river.
And do you remember the transition for you and for us going from St Mary's to Jimboomba Primary? How did that go? Like when we started there, did we all settle in okay? Or?
Well, I think in the end you probably settled. It might have been harder for Anne and Michael because they really had nobody, because that first year that we were there, Uncle Peter, Auntie Lynn, Martin, Carmel, Pat and Lizzie had gone over to America.
Actually, that's right, sorry. Anne and Michael were at Bedesett State High. They went straight to
they went straight to the Bedesett State High. So they really knew nobody. Where you at Jimboomba State School, you did have some Doyles. I don't think Peter was there. I'm not quite sure about Peter. And of course Patrick and Lizzie weren't there for the first year. Mark Mark Flynn came there for a while. And
He was in my class.
yes, I
think.
don't think Paul went to Jimboomba. But I thought at one stage you all went on the same bus, and I thought there was 14 or 15 of Granny's grandchildren on the one bus. That was when
That's
the Flynns
amazing,
were, that
isn't
was
it?
when the Flynns were back from America.
It's amazing.
And I think even today that's very amazing that because now they have different buses. So on the whole, I think you all settled in fairly well to school.
We had a few
You did get
families
into
there.
tennis.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I can remember we with the Connors and the other friends, we would go up and we'd play tennis. You learnt music while you were still going to.
I think actually after school sometimes we get ourselves to Mrs. Topin, was it?
Yeah.
Or sometimes to have a piano lesson. We must have walked there from the school or
Well, you
something
did.
like that.
So on the whole,
speech
I think being at a Catholic school to the state school in the end wasn't a massive big thing.
And we had a few families that were
Yeah.
local, like the Warings, and there's a couple of families there that had been similar to ours, I think, and the teachers, what was the teacher called? That there was a local family there as well.
Oh yeah, the Begleys. they were
Begleys, so
there
there's
too,
a few
yes,
families that
yeah,
have been
so,
there forever.
yeah.
And so at that stage, Mum, talking about your transition as well in Mackay, after you'd given up work and you'd had us, the five of us, and you had done a lot of volunteering in Mackay. Actually, let's just go over that again. What were the things you volunteered when you were in Mackay when we were young?
Well, you did volunteer. I did sort of a lot with Vinnie's, fair bit with the church. The one big thing that we did do, and Dad was very good on it too, out St Mary's School to raise money, did when bingo first come in. We had to take all the desks out of about 3 rooms, put them away, then set up the room for bingo, and that was a very, very big job. And then after it was all over, we all had to, and there was probably about 10 of us, but Dad and I were very involved with that. And as I said, a few churchings, probably though, Kath, I've been a lot more involved when I was at Jimboomba, and then very much so in Bodesset. See, when we were in Mackay, you were all more young. We used to go to the Grail once a month for a meeting, but that wasn't a volunteer thing. And the Grail ladies used to look after any children while
What was
the
that
mothers could have a discussion on religion and have morning tea.
Oh, right.
And we did that, which was good.
Is that the one that, it's a Grail beside the kindy that had children that had Down syndrome? So I remember visiting a central one. That was
the
different
Grail
place.
was out beside what was the commercial hotel,
Right.
and it probably still is there, just on Nebo Road. As a group, again, probably through the church, we used to go once a week all playing tennis. None of us were that good, but while you were playing, somebody else minded your children, and that everybody sort of looked forward to.
And who did you play with?
Oh, Stephanie O'Gorman, that I'm still friendly with today, who lives in Brisbane. Some of them that have all dead and gone now.
Was that, whereabouts was that when that you played tennis?
We used to play on courts out at West Mackay, and
I think I might remember that. Did we have a few
Yeah.
lessons out there too? A couple of lessons when we were younger out there?
oh, you had lessons mainly at Queen's Park, the big tennis courts by Ernie Patterson. Taught you swimming, tennis all those years ago. So those sort of things we really look forward to.
So that was your social, because you played a lot of sport.
I played a lot of sport before I was married. I played squash. I played that. That's why I love basketball more than netball. I played a lot of basketball until the day I married. I played a lot of, bit like Anne's playing baseball. Mine was softball. I love sport, and I used to play a bit of squash. Once I was married, I didn't sort of bar tennis, and that was just socially. I didn't play anymore.
Yeah, I guess you took us to things like the brownies and all those sorts of things.
Yeah,
back
well,
then
you
too,
were all in the
and
brownies,
scouts
the
and-
guides, scouts,
and cub-
and I did before I was married. I was a cub, because I went from a brownie to a guide to a cub leader. I took the cubs for quite a while till I got married.
So back to, I guess, your volunteering activities that you did when you hit the farm in Jimboomba and Beaudesert. What were all the things you were involved in?
Well, but we did a very big thing. Was I started off Meals on Wheels right down at Browns Plains, next to that big tower down there. Started off with about 4 people, and I used to go and cook, and then in the end they just used packet puddings, and I hated packet puddings, so I started making a baked custard or a baked rice custard. Then Beryl Edmonds joined me, and it moved then over to the big area near the swimming pool behind the tower, because a lot more people were getting Meals on Wheels. So we still cooked a fair bit. Beryl used to make big pots of homemade soup, and I would take about 3 big containers of baked rice or baked bread and butter custards.
Did you make it there or at home?
No, made them at home, and we carted them, and we always used milk because we had our own cows, milk from the farm, and in the end the government stopped us using our milk and stopped us making our puddings.
That's
And
sad.
Beryl was stopped doing her soup, and I thought that was the saddest day, because there's nothing I think worse than all those, in those days, those packet puddings. So we did that for many years.
That is really
I can
sad.
remember, again, Beryl and I did a lot of things together.
Did you met Beryl through church and through
Through
Auntie
church,
Mari, didn't you? Yeah. What sort of soups, out of interest, what soups did she make?
Well, she used to make, like I often used to make the ones out of the bones, or she'd make a lot of chicken soup. Beryl was a good cook, and she'd make a lot. And then a few times which you'd never be allowed to do now, we were involved a tiny bit with, well, I suppose domestic violence. We used to get these kiddies from where we did Meals on Wheels, and we'd take them sometimes, and one time the mother was in hospital. We had to take them to the hospital to see their mother at the Princess Alexander, and then...
Why had she been a victim of domestic violence?
Well, they were separated from their father and people, but the father wasn't to know. So they brought them to the people that were looking after the mother, brought them, and we sort of took them. We took a few different... I'm old ladies. God, I'm one myself.
No, what are you talking about, Mum? You'll never be old.
We took a few ladies to different places and that. Then eventually Beryl and Marge, that other that you all knew, Marge, and myself,
Marge Miller.
we all went and worked at Vinnie's in Jimboomba for a long time. And the highlight of it was after Vinnie's that night, we'd pick up Merv and we'd all go down to the Logan Village Hotel for our tea and to play with the pokies. And here I don't hardly ever touch a pokey. And now, but where Beryl had put perhaps $50, I'd put 5 at the most. But
That was a very social time then, wasn't it? As well as...
They were really social times, and that was one of the reasons I left the farm, because Beryl got very sick and Marge got very sick, and both of them died within about 6 months of each other. And they'd been 2 of my really good mates. But,
Mum, you were also in... I'm just thinking, you did Meals on Wheels. Weren't you also in both Vinnie's and Care and Concern as well for Jimboomba, is it?
Yeah, Care and Concern. Ann Core. We were Ann Core and who else? Oh, Beryl again. I was in lots of things there. We went and did this Care and Concern, and I think how good I am at housework now. And here we were going doing other people's sweeping and all that, and we cooked for people. We did, you know, if somebody was in strife, we cooked for them. So, but see, I suppose they're the things I've enjoyed.
Was Care and Concern a group actually? Like what was that?
Yeah, Care and Concern, and it still is today, is a Catholic organisation.
And where was that based?
Well, at Browns Plains it was based.
How long were you involved in that for?
Oh, well, we were involved. You know, you might have only been called, sometimes you might have been called a bit, other times and one lady, we reckon, she just liked getting the house done for free. So...
Oh, I don't...
It wasn't, we weren't doing heaps of it. And then I did have a fair bit to do then with Auntie Lynn. We used to go to the markets when they come back from America. She used to take us out to Anala because we used to think there was a place called Franklin's, and we thought it was cheap. So we'd go out there, and then a shop opened at Browns Plains, and we said, oh no, we'd keep going to Franklin's. But gradually we come, I think it was Jack the Slasher we went to. Auntie Lynn and I did get on really, really well. She was a beautiful person, different. She was quiet, extremely good cook.
You're both very good cooks in your own ways, weren't
loud.
you? Yeah.
We didn't see as much because Auntie Lexi wasn't at the farm that long, because she was there perhaps a couple of years and then she married Robert. So it was more, and of course we always had plenty to do with Auntie Maori. And I can still see her sitting at Granny's table. They'd put their arms on Granny's table. So yeah, so we were very lucky, and I think we're all blessed coming down there. So I enjoyed my transition to
because there was a big transition.
Our saddest thing was, of course, Dad dying when we were in at the farm. Because at night I often tell them, and I always loved that song Maggie, because to keep the irrigation going, it was cheaper from 9 o'clock at night time. So we'd go down, have it all set up in the daytime, then go down probably about 10 to 9 and sit and wait for 9 o'clock. So neither of us could sing, but we'd sing a little bit. That was one song we used to sing. Then when 9 o'clock come, we'd switch on the irrigation, and hopefully it went. So
that's you and Dad?
That was Dad and I, yes. So they were the little things. So yeah.
And because I actually want to talk a little bit more about Dad, of course, down the track. But so just before we get off the volunteering, so basically you did the Meals on Wheels, you did the Care and Concern, St Vinny's in Jimboomba in the end.
Yeah, the catechism.
The catechism, and you actually ended up doing in later years, which we'll probably talk about when we get onto your Bedesit years, but I think later years was your hospital canteen and your the information centre.
Yeah, did a lot in Bedesit, did hospital, information, helped run the bingo, which I absolutely didn't like.
And
I was in the CWL, Catholic Women's League, and we did Care and Concern there. Then towards the latter part, I went to Wongaburra and used to set up mass for the people at Wongaburra and give them morning tea. And then on the other week, once a month, I went with Margaret Grieber to what they call the shut-ins, and we used to take communion to the shut-ins and have a little talk. But they're all the things to me.
They were
what I liked. Yeah, they weren't a chore.
No, that would have been a great job, because I remember.
Oh, and I love bowls, of course.
Oh, that's yes, which will down the track our chapters will head that way. So.